Coach is
So
dropping more gems here. So I hope you probably got to rewind this and listen to what he's saying to try to catch up on all these things. But let me just draw our attention to a couple of them. Hey there, everybody. It's Matt here from the New 90 program. I am a pastor, author, and the director of the New 90 coaching program that helps men level up in a whole bunch of different areas of their life, including their family, their faith, their fitness, their finances, and their future. We try to help people break out of an average life and go and move into an exceptional life. And we have conversations with people who are doing that exact same thing. And so today, what I want to do is I want to introduce someone I've had the pleasure of getting to know for the last several weeks, maybe over a month. And we hit it off because we're both Florida boys, specifically Pinellas County boys, born and raised, and never ran across each other until he was in North Carolina and I was in Phoenix, Arizona. And so I wanted to make sure we got on here and had a conversation today. I think the things that he has been through and that he is working on right now, from the athletics portion of things and some things he's seen in the coaching realm, would really be great conversations for all of us to take a look into. And I was shocked by some of it as somebody who played sports as a young man. I was shocked by some of the responses that he was talking about from the coaching end, but he's got experience in athletics all the way from the high school level all the way up to the pro level. And so I don't want to steal any more of his thunder. And he, as Jeffrey Smith, he works for, or he has developed and owns an organization called Love the Game 24/7. And so I just want to kind of give the floor to him and let you introduce yourself real quick, Jeffrey.
well, I appreciate it, Matt, for you having me. And like you said, feel free to call me Coach Smith. You know, that's how most of my guys refer to me as well. A
Gotcha.
lot of young men that I've coached, but yeah, as you said, I have an extensive background in athletics and sports. As a kid growing up, where I had my father coaching me in Little League at the age of 7, and I played football probably from that age of 7 years old until I was 28, 30 years old, pursuing my dream of
Mm.
playing at the next level in pro football. And I had the blessing of playing high school, college, and NFL, and also Arena League football, following in the footsteps of an older brother. And My brother had the blessing of being recruited by Coach Jim Levitt, who started the University of South Florida football program. Before he got big time, he was at a little school, Morningside College, a Division II school, with the likes of North Dakota State, North Dakota, those schools out there in the Midwest area. And my brother was blessed to be able to get a scholarship. Even, I actually, just prior to my father passing away from his battle with cancer. And so it was like, Coach Lovett became like a father figure. And, as coaches, I think that's important, because as far as our experience, even my older brother at the same high school there in Pinellas County, Lakewood, we didn't have a coach that helped us, and a lot of times people think that's the norm, that coaches help. Is more of not the norm, that you're getting help from high school coaches. And you will hear some
Mm.
college coaches, recruiters, tell you how difficult it is sometimes working with high school coaches to recruit kids. And I
Mm.
didn't learn that until I got into college and talking to my coach when it was time to go recruit in our area and back home in Pinellas County. And I would meet up with my coach sometimes to go see some kids show him some other high schools that he should go, in St. Pete area, Tampa Bay area, to recruit some talent. And so I kind of learned these things, and I knew it from a personal standpoint, thinking that, oh man, maybe this only happened to us at my little high school where our coach wasn't helping us. But when I started talking to some of my other friends in Pinellas County and other high schools that I played college football with, they all said the same thing. None of them were getting help.
Mm.
So that was kind of like the norm, that more than anything. And that's why you have a lot of these things like what I'm doing, trying to help student athletes and parents through the recruiting process. But also I'm trying to help coaches understand their importance of their position that they hold as head coaches or coaches in general. As kids, a lot of kids come from single parent homes, or certain situations. And I lost my father in ninth grade when my brother was a senior. So my mom had no idea or clue about recruiting, you know.
Mm.
So I did a lot of this stuff on my own and found out on my own. And as my brothers found out stuff when they got in college, they made a point to share with me and say, hey, this is what you need to do because we know you're not getting help from the high school coach back home. So you better do these things, to make sure you
Wow.
try to help yourself, and so like you're saying, like you're trying to help men, I do that even with some of my coaches and kind of share with them when I see certain things with coaches. I kind of remind them like, hey, we're in a very influential position, whether we're head coaches or assistant coaches. These kids look up to a lot of us, and we got to make sure we respect that position. So
Wow. Yeah, that was the thing that kind of threw me off. Like when we were talking before, is the idea that the coach would be unhelpful. It seems like, when we hear about someone who's a coach, especially when you're talking about team sports, right? You're talking about football, basketball, there's baseball, but nobody likes baseball. But, at least not on this goal. But with all these team sports, you think, man, the coach's job, especially at that high school level, is to develop the kid and then help them kind of move on. But
mhm,
when I was hearing you describe that, it kind of caught me a little bit off guard because,
mhm.
I think that's how the majority of people think of coaches. It's like, oh man, it's a good coach. And it actually made me look back as a pastor on some of the kids in our youth group who said, man, I had a really bad experience with my coach. And my first knee jerk reaction, right, is to say, oh, well, you probably are just being difficult because that's your coach. Your coach is supposed to be on your side. But that's not been your experience, right? You've said that, I think, if I remember from our conversation last time, that more than half of the coaches are kind of unhelpful for kids who are looking to go on to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, just I've taken kids to camp even when I took my son to camps when he was growing up and I coached him. I would talk to parents. I made a point to talk to parents when I would go to
Mm.
camps. I just had my two nephews from Florida come up to North Carolina to take them to several camps. And as I talk to some parents, that's what you hear the norm. That's why these parents are bringing their kids to camp and trying to grab a hold of how this thing works and not leaving it to the coaches. Hats off to those parents who are taking the lead. You have to be involved. You cannot leave it all up to your coach. And there are some good coaches out there, and I still wouldn't leave it to them. And they mean well, and they
Mm.
will help you. But you still need to be involved in that process so you'll know what's going on. But I think we're talking about trauma and all these different things that mental issues in our country that we've been talking about a lot lately. These things have been going on. There are a lot of coaches who are in coaches position that have been through some trauma, who were
Mm.
raised in a certain way that we may not even have a clue, and that may be why that coach, male or female, but why they are responding that way, because they want to show that they're the ones in power, they're the ones in control, and they don't use that position. And my high school coach, I mean, he would make comments to us every year, the beginning of every year. Oh, some of you guys are thinking you're going Division I, and I'm like, well, we're one of the best high schools in the state of Florida. Why wouldn't we?
Mm.
We've had guys that go Division I from this high school, but it was on their own merit, because they just had this freakish size and speed. And no matter what that coach said, that kid was going Division I because of his measurables.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It was just nothing the coach could do about it. And there was times where we saw where like he wouldn't give us letters, to schools that, I mean, and it was, I think with him, it was more of a power thing, trying to, and my thing is always, the coaches, and I preach this to coaches even that I coach with, that we cannot ask kids to have integrity to the program, and you're not reciprocating that as a coach and being an example of that. I mean, we literally, I tell you right now, I could call guys from I grew up in the 70s, 80s, right? And I can call guys who that coach that I'm talking about that we had in high school, and nobody would be ready to go celebrate and have a reunion with that coach. To me,
Mm.
that's sad if your guys never want to come back and celebrate what the good time they had in high school and the success that they had in high school and show appreciation to a high school coach that they had. I mean, I literally sometimes when I watch some TV programs and see that on TV, guys like honoring their coaches, their high school coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, I get kind of jealous because it's like, or envious because like, man, I wish I could have had that experience, But I made a
Wow.
point because of my experience, like what you're saying, trying to help men. I got into coaching it because I was going to not let that happen to my sons. I had two
Mm.
boys. I was like, you're not just playing for anybody. I'm going to be sure you play for a coach with integrity, and I'm going to be involved because, not everybody can't coach like I did, but you still can be involved and make sure you have communication with that coach, and they know where you stand and you know where they're staying, and you don't try to run their program. It's just that, hey, this is my son or daughter, and I know they're talented enough. But so I did that with my sons to be sure that they got their opportunity, and they did. But we had a really good coach. He was not the norm. He sat down with every player to find out what their dream and goal was with this game of football. And I mean, literally every year he would sit down from your ninth grade year through your senior year. He sat down with kids, because kids' minds can change, and some kids may develop into being a better player than when they started. And he may tell them, hey, you got an opportunity to go to the next level and get a scholarship. It may not be Division I, but he's like, hey, if they come and they're interested, I'm going to tell them that you're a good football player. So he would sit down, and like I said, and that was a norm for him, and I appreciate it. He was a great example of what a coach should be like and how they should run their program. And I tell you right now, my kid, my son, and that coach, he has several guys in the NFL, several guys that played in the NFL out of that high school under him coaching. And I tell you right now, every kid that ever played for him would love to come back and have a reunion with him. I mean, kids literally would stop by his office when he was coaching that were in college or having families, and would all and come to games and everything and show their appreciation. That's a good coach.
Yeah.
So
there's so much that's popping off in my head listening to you say stuff like that. Because I think everyone has a picture of that's what a coach is, right? Listening to what you want to do. And that's kind of how, I don't know, maybe it's Hollywood, maybe it's, just the romanticization, if that's a word, of, the idea of what a coach is. But one of the things I want to touch on that you mentioned at the beginning is that there's a whole bunch of reasons that I guess people are like this, right? Especially in the coaching world. What has been your experience? Have you seen any consistent threads about why a coach would not buy into his own kids, his own players, his people on his own team, and try to help them go to the next level? What is it? Has there, in your experience, been any thread, any similarity between the people who don't want to help?
I mean, the similarity mostly that I've seen is more or less, a coach trying to show his power, that he's the one that has the influence. Because when you talk about NCAA rules, when college coaches come recruit, they're going to talk to the high school head coach first, and by rule, a player cannot sit down with a recruiter during certain times of the year without the head coach being present. And so you got head coaches that know, hey, I'm the one, I got some power, I got some authority, I got, and sometimes you have some coaches that try to hold that over players' heads. So it's almost like you're trying to treat this young man like he's an adult already, when you're supposed to be trying to influence him and teach him, certain things. And I'm not saying that you don't want to send some kid that's not very well disciplined somewhere. Well, it's our job when we get them, when they set foot on campus as coaches, to help supplement, help with the parents. You communicate with the parents. You let them know, hey, these are some things that I see, good or bad, and I'm here to help. I'm here to help you, as best as or as much as I can, because we don't want to send a kid somewhere and he's not representative of our high school very well when he goes off to college and gets in trouble or does some things. But hey, nobody's perfect. They're young. They're going to make mistakes, and we don't have to hold some of those mistakes over kids' head, because we all made them when we were younger.
Sure.
But I think the similarity is a lot of times is like that control. I got to show that I am the one that's in control of this program. And I don't think that's hard, because most kids already kind of know and have that respect that they usually get, whether it be from home or whether they played in some little league program prior to coming to high school. Kids already have respect for that position, but sometimes some coaches feel like they just have to go, to the nth degree with this, and I think it's more of, like we said, if we communicate, a little bit better, find out what, there's a lot of kids coming from some unhealthy homes, that you're dealing with in some of these schools. And it's just reality. Some of these kids are coming from tough situations, parents divorced, whatever the case may be. Like in my situation, I lost a father in ninth grade, so I'm all of a sudden I'm instant, single parent home, not because my dad did something wrong. No, he battled cancer, and he lost his battle with cancer after a year and a half, so a lot of kids have similar situations like that, or even worse situations. And so they're looking for a coach to be that example, to help give them a healthy atmosphere that they may not be used
Sure.
to at home. So sometimes, man, you're the best, like we say in the Christian aspect, you may be the closest thing to Jesus that some people may see. So as a
Hmm.
Christian, I got to be careful how I conduct myself because I don't want to lose somebody, to the faith because I'm acting, you know, not like I should, you know. And I think
Sure.
when you're a coach in that position, especially as a man, you know, um, I don't think you need to have to hold that power of control over young people, you know.
Yeah, you said a mouthful right there, and I want to just kind of stop before we keep going on the conversation and kind of draw our attention to that real
Yeah.
quick. So you're talking from the perspective of a coach, and it's coming out in that insecurity or that need to be in control, or I heard recently there's a difference between dominion and dominance. And a lot of men, kind of default to that dominant position because I'm the man and you're going to listen to me and what I say goes around here and that kind of a thing. But when we wander off into that in any aspect of our life, we tend to come across and how it impacts our actions, whether we're in a job, whether we're doing a 9 to 5, whether it's our family, our own kids, the way we are with our friends at our church or wherever we're involved in, like from a social perspective, or coaching, it comes out in that way of I have to be in control. And I think this is one of the things that that both of us are trying to draw attention to and say there is a different way to help people than try to showcase your dominance over them. Because if you're somebody who is only showcasing your dominance over somebody, you're not really helping them. You're not coaching them. You're not influencing them in a way that would promote them to, from a Christian perspective, get closer to the Lord. In a practical perspective, get closer to their dream or their ambition or whatever they're looking for, as far as, and this case, kids going on to play football or at a higher level or get a scholarship to a college. And so I think there's a moment here where we can just encourage all the men who are listening, whether you're a coach or a pastor or anywhere in between. You have influence, whether you want it or not, whether you're saying I'm not a leader or not. You have some level of influence on the people who look up to you, and some of those people who look up to you are not the players on this team. You obviously, if you're a coach, you have players on this team who are looking up to you. But if you, there's some of us who have people who are looking silently from a distance who are looking up to us, and the way we act to our kids, the way that we're treating those students or the people that are under our care makes a massive impact on them and how they will begin to act going forward. So there's a lot of things that we could, spin off here and say you need to be disciplined in the way you talk to people, and all of that's true. You need to be disciplined in the way that look at people and treat people. All of that's true. But the greatest fight you're going to fight is the one against you, your insecurity, your selfishness, your greed, your need to be seen. And so the encouragement here is if you're a coach who, you're listening to, Coach Smith talk and say, man, I'm kind of doing that to these kids that I'm coaching with, or I'm doing that to my youth group, or I'm doing that to my own kids, or anyone that you have influence with. Here's a moment to say you can get better here and then turn around and help others, because there is no purpose in life without helping other people. And so I just want to kind of draw our attention to that, and not, what you said
Mhm.
is key, right? It's key that dominant attitude is not helping your marriage. It ain't helping your kids. It ain't helping, your team. It ain't helping your family. It's not helping anybody. Although it might feel like it's satisfying that thing in you to be in control, the people around you are experiencing it from a negative perspective.
Oh, absolutely, because you're in a position where you help people dreams come true.
Right.
And if you're a dream killer as opposed to a dream creator, I mean, how can you be happy with yourself when there
It's
were
great, man.
tons
It's
of
great.
kids who lost their passion to play sports because of a situation with a coach?
Mm.
And it hurts me sometimes when I've had kids. Like I said, I work in the financial aid for over 25 years. And I've seen student athletes come in my office wondering, like, why aren't you playing ball somewhere? Man. And first thing they say, is something. Now, granted, I'm not saying whether they're a great kid or not, it doesn't matter. what they were as a kid. As an adult, in the room, as a coach, like I said, you can't tell a kid to have integrity and team, and you're not reciprocating that to the young men, no matter whether they're right or wrong or they did something good or bad. It shouldn't matter. You're the
Right.
one to bring balance. You're the one to bring that thing under, if you want control, I would say have control in that form where you're helping turn that young man or young lady's life around to a positive direction and be a dream maker, to see them, man, you remember when you were how hard headed you
Yeah.
were, and man, you turned it around, and you get kids that come back and tell you, like, man, coach, man, you're the only one that didn't give up on me. You know,
Mm.
you didn't give up on me. You stuck with me. And I know I was a bad kid, but they went off to college and graduated, got a family. I've seen a lot of that, but like I said, it's times where, I know I want to be a dream maker to not just my own kids, to other young men that I had the blessing of coaching, and young ladies when I coached track, because I coached football and track in the high school level. And so I, like you said, when you know like that power and things like that, I think it's just very important that you recognize, how you can make a much bigger impact by using that power in a more positive direction, because like I said, there's a lot of people whose dreams have been killed because their experience with a coach, and to me, that's just a sad situation.
Yeah, it is. And I think that, even if you're watching this and you're not a sports person, you're kind of like, well, I didn't have a bad coach. Let me flip the script a little bit to the other side of the coin. From my own experience, I question, like I'm a pastor today, but I question getting out of the ministry for a long time because of the people like the pastors and the leaders from a church world who kind of operated in that same selfish, dominant kind of way
Exactly.
because they were trying to build their own thing instead of build other people. And so you may not experienced it from a sports thing. You might be like, bro, I hate football. Well, there's something the matter with you. But I mean, that's a side issue. Um, but if you're a person who's like, man, I'm into music or art or movies or technology or something,
Hmm.
all of us that have come in contact with a leader who has discouraged us. Like I just listened to a businessman talk. He's like, if you are losing the best talent at your business and the people who are your best workers, it's not because they're not being paid enough. It's because their relationship with leadership is strained or they don't
Mhm.
believe in it. And so whether you're talking about it from my perspective on a ministry, that business person I listened to earlier, or Coach Smith, who's talking to us about it from the team sports and coaching perspective, that leadership has a massive influence on the people that are underneath you. So I wanted to come back to something else you said earlier too. You said that you were dedicated because of your experience and your brother's experience, and he said, "Hey, he helped you navigate. Stay away from this coach or this area or these pitfalls. Or you got to do these things because they're not going to help you. In some area." You're now this organization that you've developed kind of help people walk through that. But before you got into that, you mentioned I put all these principles into place for my own kids and my own family. So when you're doing that, you are present. And I think a lot of people don't have the benefit of having an advocate,
Right.
whether it's a parent or an uncle or an aunt or a friend or somebody from their church, a pastor or something, be their advocate in a room where they can't really speak up to the person that they need to address in a certain way. Can you speak to that a little bit about the role of not just a father? I mean, we understand the importance of that. Our culture is, is experiencing the results of fatherless homes, right? But speak to that about having an advocate, either as a parent or as someone from the outside, how it can make a difference to that kid who's going in to talk to that coach.
Oh man, absolutely. I mean, it will alleviate a lot of um, issues and problems, and I don't necessarily want to say speed up the process. It would may have made that process smoother. I could just tell where I was at University of Miami, sitting in the office with Jimmy Johnson when the Miami Hurricanes were on top of the world,
Wow.
with my mom recruiting, and told me he wanted me to be a Miami Hurricane. I mean, I was done. I was like looking at any other school because I was a Hurricane fan. I'm like, I'm going to be a
Right.
Hurricane. And I know if my father was alive, because he was that type of person. Now, he wouldn't have gone in to try to tell anybody about how to run their program. His thing would have been, this is my son. I know their talent. And
Right.
I got to be here to protect my son's interests, and because I know what he can be. And I know it would have been different, having my father, like you said, an advocate, or even a mom who knows, or whether she knows or not, she just, that's what I want to bring, to look from love the game 24/7, because you got to love the game 24/7, just like you got to love the Lord 24/7. You're going to dedicate yourself to anything, whether it's sports, music, your academics, whatever your purpose is, you have to love that thing 24/7 through the ups and downs. But having an advocate of somebody who knows, because I didn't have that, and I pretty much had to learn all this stuff on my own, pretty much. And so I knew the Lord was just taking me and always speaking to me, even when I was a young man, about this whole situation, that he wasn't going to use my experience in vain, that I had purpose.
Mm.
And I've had it spoken over me, even in my church, prophesied over me that I would be the father of many young men, and I have been, and still to this day, some of my son's teammates from high school, whether they're playing sports or not, I speak into their lives when I see them. I keep in contact with them, even the ones that are still playing. I'm involved with quite a bit of these young men. And so I just know having that somebody that can advocate for you, who knows the process, and that's why I said when my sons grew up, because I knew what was going on, what was more the norm, and I wasn't going to let it happen to mine or any other young man that I coach, or young girl that I coached in track. I was going to do everything I could to help them understand they have purpose, they have talent, and you can go to the next level for those ones who had the ability, and even some of the ones that had the ability that didn't even realize they had it. Because you got some, especially when it comes to girl sports and athletics, you know, there were some young ladies that I coach in track, and I'm like, wow, do you know you can go to college and get a scholarship? And they're like, what?
Mm.
I had no clue. I'm like, yes, you can get a scholarship. You are good. And you need to, and start talking to the parents. You need to look into her going to the next level and encouraging her, because it's going to help save you money for college from having to
Sure.
pay, you know. But having somebody to advocate for you and explain all that stuff to you when you don't know or don't even have a clue, or you see a kid light up because they had no clue that they had that kind of ability, and you get as a coach speaking into their lives and saying, no, you have the potential. Now whether they do it or not, you try to help them understand. You got to love this thing.
Sure.
Um, and apparently you wouldn't be out here if you didn't think you could go to the next level. You just love running. But now you realize there are some coaches who saw you at a track meet, you know, and you got to be, your coaches need to be an advocate, and that's very important. And so like you said about the coaching, when you look at Coach Dungy, you know, a lot of people say because he didn't cuss at athletes and yell and scream, now we got Deion Sanders at Colorado, University of Colorado
Mhm.
doing things that, and that's his purpose. He's doing that same thing, trying to show guys how to do it. And I happened to see one of his videos of one of his assistant coaches that played football at Georgia, and he was a student assistant, and he shared how he was told he would never be a coach
Mm.
by his coach at Georgia. And now he said this guy's still a coach in a Power 5 school, still coaching football, and told him he would
Wow.
never be a coach. Now he's a college coach at Colorado at a successful program. And he said he can't wait to go shake that coach's hand and say, hey, you remember you told me I wouldn't be a coach? Well, I'm a coach, and I'm
Right.
changing young men's lives. And just like I'm saying, it made him go be a coach because of what he was told that he couldn't do. When somebody should have told him, that coach should have said, yes, you can. If you desire to do
Hmm.
this and you do it this way, yes, son, you can become a coach. Yes, young lady, you can become a coach. So yeah, you got to
Yeah.
have an advocate. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
important.
Coach Smith's dropping gems here for us. So let's just pick up a couple of them. All right. So first, if you're a coach and you're kind of operating that dominance, you have a chance to change because you are shaping the lives of future young men and in sports and athletics, but also in life. So I'm wondering, hearing how many people that Coach Smith is talking about have lost their love for the game. I wonder how many athletes we have not seen because of the discouragement from
Oh, yeah.
the coach before, and all they needed was someone to kind of take the reins and believe in him. So if you're a coach, you have an opportunity to change your approach now, before you do anything else going forward. The second thing is, if you're a father, you're an existing father. There is a need for you to
Oh,
play a father figure role to people who don't have a father, to kids who don't have a father that's present. Maybe they had a situation like Coach Smith was just talking about where he lost his father in ninth grade. If you are somebody who is a father, especially if you're a Christian man who is a father, you're involved in a church, there is opportunities all around you to play that encouraging leader, father role to other people. And he's found out a way to do this from a business perspective and relational. But there is a spot for you to do that, even if you don't know anything about sports, even if you don't know anything about football, to walk in and just be an advocate, be present for that young man or that young girl who is looking at trying to go through this process, connecting them with other people, helping them out on the things, helping them know the things that they just don't know. We don't know what we don't know because of lack of experience or just ignorance. It's ignorance is not stupidity. It's just lack of awareness or knowledge of something. You have a role to play. And I'm so glad we're having this conversation with Coach Smith today, because he is kind of exempling this in front of you. And he's talking about it because it's just naturally part of who he is and who God created him to be and called him to be. But there's a point here for us to experience some growth on our own end if we would just look around to the people that are in our immediate vicinity. If you're at a church, you're at a rec center, maybe your kid is playing sports and you're looking at some of these other kids and they don't have fathers that are present for whatever reason. I'm not trying to point fingers at why at the moment. I'm just saying there is a void, a gap that you can step into here and make a real difference in somebody else's life. I said it before, there's no purpose without other people. The real richest fulfillment you will ever find in your life outside of serving God is serving other people and pointing them in the right direction without the bitterness, without the need to be dominant, without the dream killing thing like Coach was talking about earlier, but becoming that dream builder and helping encourage these young men to take a chance, take a risk. I would rather someone take the shot and miss than just sit down on the bench because, man, no, I can't shoot, because someone just didn't believe in them. And so there's a whole bunch of gems here, man. I could spend the next couple of hours just dissecting that little piece that you just had there. But it's a lot of great stuff. What's the best route for a parent who's looking at their kids, who are looking at sports, they're looking at they're looking at possibly going to the next level, they're looking at college, and they're experiencing somebody who's not helping them at the moment. They're experiencing a coach who's kind of, like we talked about before, he's one of that more than 50% who's not really helping them. He's kind of
right.
crushing it at the moment. What would be something that they can do? What are some active steps they can do kind of on a general level now to kind of help their kids move forward as they chase the dream of athletics?
Oh, that's a great question. One thing I did, even though I was around and present,
Mm-hmm.
my oldest son was a quarterback. Now I played a little quarterback when I grew up, but I was mainly a running back and defensive back. So I saw that my son was pretty good at this quarterback thing. So you got to invest not just in time in your child's with time and their talent, um, and in their mental part as well. So you got to invest financially. So I got my son a quarterback coach
Mm.
because now this is because I saw that he had, and even other people telling me, man, he is pretty good naturally. He was just, to me, I was like, okay, I need to, figure this thing out because I can only take him so far because I was a running back. Now, if he was a running back,
Sure.
I got, hey, I'm gonna show you everything, because I can show you that because that's what I did all my life as a kid, all the way up to the pro level and played some receiver. But when it came to him being a quarterback, and when he was in eighth grade, I taught the high school where I coach. I got advice from the head football coach at the high school. He said, "Hey, look," he's like, "I don't train as much anymore." He's like, "Because I'm up in age and I don't really do it as much." But he's like, "I'm gonna tell you some people who I trust that he's vetted and he knows personally that play quarterback that can teach your son, that he didn't mind, that he knew wouldn't take away from his coaching on what he was doing when he was at high school, getting coached by him. And him and his quarterback coach were also golf buddies. So the head coach could tell his quarterback coach, hey, this is what I'm working on. These are the plays I'm working on. And I need you to kind of work with him when you get him by himself with his because I know his dad is paying for private workouts, So it was that. So now you got that position coach, private coach that you can use to have a relationship with the head coach. That might be difficult with you as a parent, but because that person, and you want to make sure you have somebody that has experience, that knows what they're doing. And you got to be willing to invest financially in some private coaching for whatever position your child plays. If you don't know it, as a parent, and that's what I did. And when you're talking about a school where my son went to Boston College and it costs 65,000 a year times 4.
Wow.
That's almost 300. That's $250,000 for 4 years that I didn't have to pay for. I had already paid for it. I invested my time as a dad. I invested in finding people that can help. Hey, dad is not the only one that can help you. Like you just said, you need other people. Anytime you're going to be successful, you got to have other people, and you got to understand as a parent, I got to have some other people, that know more than I do, that can train my kid. And because I don't have the time, because I got to work also. But hey, this guy does this full time. He's working and training college guys all over the place at Division I level, Division II level, and NFL, pro level and Canadian League. So I'm like, hey, I mean, it cost me money, but look what happened in the end. It paid off. He got a full scholarship. Now it's a job. People don't realize it's a job on that scholarship. You got to keep your academics. You got to keep your level up to play on that field. And now he was blessed to go to the next level and play in the NFL. So, like me, if somebody wants to use Love the Game 24/7, I have played at every level, and I have a son that I've raised and coached that's playing and currently playing at every level. So that's the kind of stuff you want to like find somebody with experience like that you want to invest in to help invest, in your child. So I may have spent, when you look at the 4 years from equipment to private school, now every kid is not in private school and don't have to go to private school, but I put mine in private school because of the coaching situation. Now I knew my son was good in academics, but I chose that school because of that coach that I knew was going to help take him to the next level. Not just me, but this coach was going to be able to help me, help my son, as well as many others. And I had a lot of young men that I coached in Little League followed me to that same high school that went on and played. Right now, one of the University of Illinois, Newton kid, he's the number 1 D lineman in the country that will probably be drafted. I coached at CCC and all his older brothers. The other brother is at University of Toledo, and he's a potential draft pick at wide receiver. So this is the kind of stuff that you want to have successes with, where you speak into young men's lives and you have that positive influence. And and I talk to these kids every day on social media. We keep in contact. They're doing great. There's a lot more kids that are working in other areas. Aeronautics. I got some young men working in aeronautics that play football for us. They're smart kids. But you got to invest that money and time and find somebody like that. You may have to pay money, and it's fine, but it's going to work out. But when you look at what I spent, maybe 40 or 50,000 compared to his scholarship that was 60-something thousand for 4 years, I got a good return on my investment. Whether he made it to the next level or not, he got a degree in 3.5 years. My youngest son, he graduated with a 2-year degree in high school, and then he went to the college where I worked and was able to, get a decent education with scholarship money and all that because he was real smart. And he's working and being successful in his own right, doing what he's doing. So when you look at, it's a worthwhile investment when you do that for your kids.
Yeah, coach is dropping more gems here. So I hope you probably have to rewind this and listen to what he's saying to try to catch up on all these things. But let me just draw our attention to a couple of them. He was very adamant on something that he said just a few minutes ago. You have to have other people for you to be successful. You cannot, this idea of the Lone Ranger, I don't even know why they called him the Lone Ranger, because he had Tonto as a sidekick, right? Like he had somebody as somebody who was with him to try to help him along the way. Batman had Robin, right? Like there's different roles that people will play
Yeah.
because of personalities and ability levels and talents and insights and knowledge and all of that stuff. But you cannot do it alone. I have just finished a interview and study with several dozen men that have live all over the country, all different ages, some of them even out of the country, and talk to them about the things that they're struggling with as men. And almost all of them mentioned at some point in time, they all had a list of things they were struggling with, but at some point in time, almost all of them mentioned isolation. That I don't want to say that I don't know how to do something because I feel stupid and I'm a man. I'm supposed to be able to figure it out. Well, there's an old African proverb that says we run further when we run together because you have less, you're less likely to be on your own. You're less likely to have an injury by yourself. You're less likely to face a challenge by yourself. You can always turn and ask somebody for help. So if you're a guy, you're a coach, you're a parent, and you're like, man, I don't know what to do, so I'm not doing anything. You need help. And whether you go pay for that help, like Coach is talking about with other coaches and position coaches and trainers and things like that, or whether you're going to find another way to invest in your child, you have to have extra help, even if it's a different voice than the person that your kid's hearing all the time that says the exact same thing to them that you've been saying, but they just said it in a different voice or a different way where it triggered something for your son or your daughter. That is very key for us to remember here. And it's something to pick up from what Coach is saying is that you're going to need other people. You're going to need them. The second thing he talked about was investing in other people. I know people who would invest in other people if they knew what their need was, but they won't invest in themselves. You're going to have to invest in yourself to get some knowledge, even if it's just a general knowledge of something, even if it's not about sports. Maybe you're like, well, my kid doesn't play football, my kid is a musician. You need to go find a good music teacher. You need to put them in a good music program. You need to find someone who will teach in a way that your child learns. That's going to take research. That's going to take asking other people. That's going to take some investments for the guitar lessons or piano lessons or whatever instrument they play. It's going to take some of that investment, but that investment is returned in their success. And watching other people succeed, especially your kid, but watching people that you've invested in succeed brings its own level of fulfillment and joy and satisfaction that addicts you to want to go back and find more people to help and launch them forward. That's the nature of coaching. And in a Christian perspective, that's the nature of discipleship. The people that you coach need to run further than you did. So if I'm sitting here at 40 something, I won't give it all away, but I'm here in my late 40s, and the people that I'm investing my life into, by the time they get to my age, should be light years past me because I handed them the things that I had and didn't want to just hoard them to myself. Have you seen that return in other people's lives, Coach, where or maybe even speak to what that's like, that experience is like when you invest in someone, they listen to what you have to say, they take your wisdom and what you're imparting to them, take it, apply it, and run with it. What is that like for you as someone who's not playing in the league anymore? Your kids are raised and grown and off into college. What is that like for you when you see a young man take that information and go exceed with it?
Oh yeah, I have plenty of young men that I've coached that are, they're not playing football, but they're real estate, working in real estate, doing well. They're like I said, I have young men who are working for. I went on to Every Riddle because he was just smart as a whip. He was a real good athlete. He was small in stature, but he could have gone. He had opportunity to go to college and play football. He just chose. He knew. He's like, nah, coach, I'm good. I had fun playing, with Jeff, my oldest son, and other, and doing very well. The kid has a secret. What is it? I don't know, Secret Service clearance, whatever they call it, because of what he
Oh
does.
wow.
with his job, stuff that
Wow.
he does in aeronautics, that he's just smart, like, and several kids, I got a couple of kids doing real estate, work for real estate, doing that, in the process of starting their own families, that I keep in contact with, or when we're back home visiting or via social media and I see them, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, it's just, like you said, I remember the reason why I had that mentality was because my father didn't just invest in us with sports. I had to take trumpet lessons. So he paid for us to have, he was like, no, I don't want you just in sports. I want you to be well rounded. So I had to take trumpet lessons, clarinet lessons when I played the clarinet. So I did music lessons. I did all that stuff. Yeah, tutoring, I never did. Matter of fact, he did coaching for he paid for coaching for all the other stuff and not sports. Cause he's like, oh, I know
Mm.
you guys are fine with that. It wasn't that big of a thing back then. I wish I would have had some of that, but he definitely paid for that. And I did the same thing with my kids. Um, my youngest son played the steel drums, paid for lessons for him when he was in elementary school with his band teacher. And they used to go around the city in Tampa Bay area playing the steel drums in elementary school. And my son is playing pro football. He played the tuba. It was bigger than he was when he was growing up. Um, but we paid for music lessons for both of them growing up, to make sure they were well rounded. Because I never knew. I'm not sure if sports was going to take off like that for them. I knew they had the ability if they wanted to. Like my youngest son, I thought he was a great baseball player. He did well, but he decided he just wanted to stick with academics. He didn't really care for it, to go any further with it. But yeah, I mean, I have stories like that all the time that I keep in contact with a lot of these kids. Matter of fact, they want to keep in contact with me. That's that's the thing. When they see me on
Mm.
social, hey coach, or something, or me
Yeah.
posting something, they liking it or whatever, and DMing me about stuff like, oh, I see you coach getting on social media doing, or they encouraging me or giving me some pointers, but
Yeah.
that's you appreciate that because you made such an impact and influence. And even with me working in higher ed at the university in financial aid as assistant director, I've been a part of graduations and see students who come across my desk that, they thank us. If it wasn't for you helping me get my financial aid, I may not have graduated. I may not have had the
Mm.
money, and that makes you, like you said, it makes you want to, keep doing it, because of that appreciation. And it's not, I don't do it because I want that, but when you do get the appreciation back from someone, man,
Sure.
it just lights your fire, to do it even more. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, there when you find when you discover the joy of helping other people, it does something to you because your motives are pure, right?
Hmm.
When we talk about purity a lot today, especially in the church culture, we think, purity is tied to sex, but there's a definition of purity that is free from debris. When there's not any debris that's flowing out of me, like anger, hatred, or frustration that comes out in my words or my actions or the way I treat other people, there is it breeds a purity of motive. There's no other motive in here except to help you, to pass on my knowledge, to make a difference in your life, to see you excel, even if it's not in sports, as a real estate agent and aeronautics and college or whatever business you choose to be involved in, like you just mentioned with all those young men you've had a chance to pour into. There's something that on the back end of it, there's such a fulfillment, and it's how God designed us, right? We're supposed to, as men, we're supposed to be leading the way and helping these younger men go. And when you invest your life into other people, you're going to find that the return was never the goal, but that return of fulfillment fuels that pure motive and joy to continue on doing the things that are imparting to other people. And so, man, I could have a whole bunch of. We're probably going to have a couple more of these conversations, Coach,
Yeah.
before it's all said and done, because it's just naturally flowing out of you, these principles that I think people need to pick up on and make sure that they implement in their life. So before we wrap up here, would you just kind of just either talk to whoever you want to end it up? You want to talk to coaches, you want to talk to fathers, you want to talk to parents, you want to talk to father figures, whoever it is. What kind of nugget of wisdom would you leave with any of us going forward before we wrap up our podcast?
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely, as a parent, like you mentioned earlier, find somebody who can advocate for you, especially for your child, to help their purpose, to help their dreams come true. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you're that person that parent is going to be able, they're going to be able to use to be an advocate for them, be sure you handle that responsibility with integrity and, and like you said, no motives behind it, just the idea of, hey, you being able to help. But hey, some people, you're going to be paying for that, as well.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You should be willing to invest in your kids, whether it be financially or time or anything, and if it's not you, you make sure you vet and make sure you have somebody that's going to be able to help, take your kid there. Because even when I stopped coaching little league, when my sons were playing their last years in little league, and I went on to start coaching high school, I showed up at the little league practice. I didn't try to tell those coaches at the little league level, even though I didn't always agree with. Not that they weren't bad people at all. Maybe I would have coached, did some drills a little different or this and that. Sometimes I would talk
Sure.
to them, or they would ask me because they knew my background. They knew that I played because I knew some of them personally, so they knew that. But I always made my presence known, and I didn't have to say anything. My presence was me showing up. He has a dad that shows up at practice,
Yeah.
at every game, and I used to travel with work. I mean, and sometimes I would miss. My wife would be there mostly, but sometimes I sometimes I had to fly out of town for a day. Sometimes I would purposely, if I didn't have to be there more than several days out of town, and I can get somewhere early in the morning and come right back that evening and be back in time for practice, or to replace my wife from practice, and she could go home, but I was there, and I may have just gotten off a flight from out of state somewhere or another part of the state of Florida, but I would make sure as much as possible my presence was made known at school for things at school that were important, not just sports, but also my presence at their activities outside of school, be it sports or their music or band or whatever my youngest son and different things they were involved in. And,
Right.
as coaches, it's not a power thing. These are young people that we're trying to build and mold and shape. And you're a person who they look up to and who they shouldn't feel like they have to protect themselves from a coach, because you're the one that's supposed to be protecting them as a
Mm.
coach, not just as a parent. You're there to help supplement and be, and help that parent when they're outside of the home, because a lot of kids spend more time outside of home at school and extracurricular activities. So if you're that person at school, that teacher, that coach, you know, you need to definitely, you know, appreciate that opportunity and that privilege that you have to be that positive father figure or a mother figure if you're a woman coach, female coach, or a band teacher, or whatever the case may be. That's a very important position because the kids spend a lot of time with you during a certain time of year. You have a lot of influence, over that young person's life. And I think you need to take that very serious, and not to speak negative, saying they can't be something. You should be encouraging them, saying, hey, if you do this better, you can become something. Or if you do things different, you can become this, and not tell a child, no, you're not going to ever become something. That doesn't work, telling them something like that. For some people, some kids, it could work for possibly. It will drive some people, but more than anything, it kills them. It kills their spirit to stop and quit and to go forward. So that's what I would leave. And I appreciate you giving me that opportunity to share that.
So, man, something else I just got to key on just real quick before we wrap up here. He just said something very key: the privilege of parenting.
Mhm.
Our culture, especially as we watch it degrade around us and descend into some kind of lunacy on some level, right? Like things are just crazy. We're watching people celebrate the fact that that I don't have kids and I don't want them
Yeah.
because I get to get up late or I get to do whatever I want and watch whatever movie I want. I don't have to feed some little person. Or I seen a sad article of a young married couple who had a couple kids who the mom walked away from the marriage not because of infidelity or for anything like that, just because she's like, I feel like I lost my youth and I don't want to be bogged down by these kids and this marriage and walk away from it. And as our culture celebrates things like that, I think that there is a pull for people to start to look at parenting like it's a burden instead of a privilege. But you just heard Coach line it out here that there is a privilege of parenting. There is a responsibility that is not. It is a weight. There is a weight to it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
in the same way that a trainer puts more weight on a bar to make you stronger, what you're going to find is that you have been designed by your creator, by Almighty God, to function in this role, and it's your proper role. And so if you're somebody who is without a parent, without an advocate, man, I'm sorry, but there are people around you who want to be that for you. I'm going to pray that you find those people. And if you're someone who's like, man, I don't know what else to do, for the generation behind me, and you're looking at, the things that we're looking at, and it's going kind of spiraling out of control. It looks like it's going down the drain on some aspects of it. Get involved. Don't
Yeah.
watch it go down the drain. Jump in, like you're hearing Coach talk about today. Jump in, make a difference, make an impact, because every single person that we steer back on the right track, especially as Christian men, as fathers, as men in general who are trying to invest in the people in the next generation, what we're going to find is that it's going to slowly move the culture just a nudge, a partial degree back in the right direction. And we desperately need that. It is a privilege to have those kids that you have been called to steward. Man, that's good stuff, Coach. Thanks so much for being here today. We'll definitely do this again. It's just too easy to talk to you, right? It's just too easy to talk
Yeah,
to you.
yeah,
I heard,
absolutely.
I heard, yeah, I heard a couple of things in there about back home. I'm going to be asking here a little bit later too, as well. But
Yeah.
it's been great. And so until next time, we will see you guys. Thanks for joining
Yep.
us.